It started with a broken-down Mustang on the side of a quiet suburban road. A wealthy man in an expensive suit stood frustrated, kicking at the tire while everyone else simply drove past. But then, out of nowhere, a little black girl, no older, than 12, walked up, her hands greasy, her confidence startling. She offered help where grown men had refused. He laughed at first until she fixed what he couldn't. But it wasn't her skill that left him frozen. It was the small, worn ring on her tiny finger. A ring with a story so powerful it would change everything he thought he knew. It was a warm Saturday morning in the wealthy part of town, the kind of place where the streets gleamed and the houses stood like fortresses of privilege. For Mr. Donovan, a self-made millionaire known for his taste in luxury, it was supposed to be just another casual drive in his vintage Mustang, a car he loved showing off more than actually driving. But halfway down a quiet stretch of road, the engine sputtered, coughed, and gave out. Frustration washed over him. His polished hands were made for business deals, not grease and tools. He stepped out, his expensive shoes crunching against the gravel, and glanced around for help. Cars whizzed by, drivers staring, but never stopping. He was stranded, alone in a place where his wealth didn't matter. Just when the tension began to rise, a small figure appeared. A girl, no older than 12, approached with a quiet confidence. Her clothes weren't new, her sneakers scuffed, but her eyes carried a spark of determination. She carried an old red toolbox that looked heavier than she was. Most people would have turned away, intimidated by his sharp suit or the gleaming car. But not her. Without hesitation, she asked if he needed help. He couldn't help but smirk. Could a little black girl possibly know about fixing a Mustang? Still, there was something in her stance, something unshaken that made him pause. She knelt beside the car, tools clicking, hands steady, as though she had done this 100 times. And in that moment, Donovan felt a strange mix of disbelief and curiosity. Who was this girl? Where did she learn this? And more importantly, what drove her to help a man who had everything when she seemed to have so little? If you were in Donovan's place, would you trust her? Or would you walk away, blind to the story waiting to unfold? The millionaire leaned against the hood arms, crossed, waiting for her to fail. But minutes passed, and the girl's small fingers moved with precision. She loosened bolts, adjusted a belt, and tapped the carburetor in a way that made the engine cough back to life. His smug expression faltered. Donovan finally asked how she learned, but her answer was vague, almost deflective. "My dad taught me." She kept her eyes on the tools, her tone steady, but something in her voice hinted at pain. He didn't press further. Still the sight. Was surreal, this little girl, kneeling in the dust, saving a millionaire's prized possession like it was nothing. Passers-by slowed, their eyes lingering on the strange sight of wealth and poverty colliding on the side of the road. Some shook their heads, others whispered. To them, she didn't belong near that car or that man. Donovan noticed it too. He could feel the stares, the silent judgment. Yet he couldn't deny she was doing what he couldn't. For the first time in years, he felt small. Her scuffed sneakers and greasy hands told a different kind of success story, one that came not from privilege, but from survival. When she finally stood, wiping her forehead with the back of her sleeve, Donovan caught a glint of metal on her hand. At first, he thought it was just a toy ring, the kind kids wear. But as sunlight hit it, he froze. It was no toy. 'Twas old, worn, and far too significant to be random. His chest tightened. That ring, he recognized it. He had seen it before, years ago, in a place he tried hard to forget. He opened his mouth to ask. But before he could, the girl's expression shifted. Her confidence melted for just a second, replaced by something fragile. She pulled her hand back quickly, as if ashamed. The air grew heavy, the weight of an unspoken truth pressing between them. Why would a little girl carry something like that? Why did it feel like fate had placed her here at this exact moment, forcing him to face something buried deep in his past? The sound of the engine roaring back to life should have been a victory, but Donovan couldn't take his eyes off the ring. His chest pounded as if each heartbeat was trying to push a memory to the surface, one he had spent years burying. He reached out, almost without thinking, and asked where she got it. For a split second, she froze, clutching her small hand to her chest. Then, in a whisper too soft for the roaring Mustang, she said, "It was my father's." The words sliced through him. Donovan staggered back, his breath unsteady. That ring belonged to a man he once knew, a mechanic who had worked on his cars years ago. A man who was brilliant, kind, but overlooked because of the color of his skin. A man Donovan had humiliated in front of wealthy clients, dismissing him as just the help. Not long after, that man disappeared from Donovan's world entirely, leaving behind whispers of struggle, injustice, and loss. And now, his daughter was standing here, unknowingly bringing that shame back into the light. Donovan's eyes burned with a mixture of guilt and disbelief. How could this child carry the weight of that legacy? She had inherited not just her father's skills, but also his quiet dignity. He wanted to explain, to confess, to say something, anything, but the words lodged in his throat. The girl, sensing his unease, simply asked if the car was good now. Her innocence made the moment heavier. She didn't know the history. She didn't know that her father's story and Donovan's arrogance were entwined. Or did she? That guarded look in her eyes, did it hide the truth? Did she know who he was all along? Viewers, what do you think? Did this little girl recognize Donovan? Or was it fate weaving justice in silence? Donovan stood there, torn between gratitude and shame, as the little girl quietly packed her tools. She didn't wait for praise or payment, just tightened the straps on her worn backpack and turned as if to leave. For a man used to people hovering for his approval, her silence was almost unbearable. He called out, fumbling for words, but she only looked back once, the sunlight glinting on that ring. It was more than jewelry, it was a reminder, a legacy, truth he could never erase. Driving away, Donovan couldn't focus on the purr of his revived Mustang. His mind raced with the memory of her father, the man he had dismissed, the opportunities he had stolen, the dignity he had shattered with careless words. And now, fate had placed that man's daughter before him, not to punish, but to remind him of what wealth could never buy back. Respect, humanity, decency. For the girl, it was just another day, another car, another reminder of the father she lost too soon. But for Donovan, it was a reckoning. The image of her scuffed shoes, her steady hands, and that weathered ring would haunt him. He realized that no amount of success could cleanse the stains of his past, unless he chose to change. This story isn't just about a millionaire and a little girl. It's about the legacies of pain and resilience. About how racism doesn't just wound individuals, it echoes through generations. And the question remains, how many more daughters and sons must carry the weight of their parents' struggles before we finally decide to break the cycle? What do you think? Was it fate that brought them together, or a reminder that history never truly stays buried?